Hello, welcome to Andertons TV. My name is Jet Duxbury, he's the Maltese Falcon.
Woo.
And this is...
Alex.
From?
ASM
Oh,
today.
brand new. What have you got in front of us?
This is the Hydrasynth, the new wacky digital thing.
And if you don't want to hear us get very in-depth and talk about all the features, keep an eye out for a playing only, no talking video. We're going to high five and get into this. A lot going on there. What's going on? What is going on?
Yeah, there's a lot going on because it is a crazy machine. So basically, this is the Hydrasynth, which is a brand new synth from a brand new company that no one's heard of before because this is their first synth. Interestingly, the company who made it have actually been making machines like this for 25, 30 years. But let's look at the actual machine today. So the Hydrasynth is an unashamedly digital synth. It's not an analog synth, although it does have some sort of analog modelled properties, the filters namely. But it's not. It's a digital synth. And that's how it can do insane things that analog synths cannot do. Because the core of this is, you know, on an analog synth, you've got saw, square, these kind of traditional waveforms. In this machine, this is a wavetable synth. So it doesn't, well, it does have saw, square, but it also has actually 219 waveforms in totality. And each waveform is like a little recording, like a little sample. And you can move between them and layer them up and do all manner of crazy mutations to them and then filter them and then modulate them. And that just leads to this kind of crazy possibility. Like sonic depth-wise, the Hydrasynth is like you could use this for decades and not hear the same sound twice. Like there's just way too many places that you could go that you would ever discover in a lifetime. Genuinely, it's like a sound designer's sort of dream. And the other thing is, I'm kind of not very much of a keyboard player. I'll get you to play this.
No, get a lot more in though.
Well, but this is a polyphonic aftertouch keyboard, meaning that every note you can push down on the note a little harder and access this additional layer of control. So like if I go to the first sound...
But per finger?
Per finger. Per finger. So I can sort of lean into chords, so you go, if I hold... So you sort of...
That is a rare beast.
It is a rare beast. The only way that they could do that is the company who are ASM made this keyboard. Like, that's their design. So it's really hard because it's technically difficult to do. You then also need the sound engine that can respond to that properly. And so yeah, it's this amazing sound design option. And there's two. There's a keyboard, and then there's this little unit. This little unit here, which
we'll get round to it. It looks very different.
Well, so it's basically the same. If you look carefully, you pretty much got the same controls. There's maybe just like the even LFO knobs are not on the desktop.
Okay.
And obviously the desktop doesn't have the keyboard, but it does have these pads, and these pads are polyphonic as well. So you can get poly aftertouch on the pads.
And so it's a good size, very small.
Yeah, it comes with rack ears as well, so it can be rack mounted. But yeah, it's neat. Also, there's like a recessed little bit so that if you do rack it, you don't have to have cables poking out the top. Bit of a rack mount, sort of bugbear on the machines that don't have that.
Where would you start with something like this?
So there's loads of sounds. I'll very quickly show you like the architecture. Well, let's make a sound. So to do that, there's two things we can do. One is I can just initialize. But what's really fun is that you can also randomize. So you can just go.
I love that.
And so it'll just New sound. Great. And again.
That's
very quiet.
So fun.
Sound quite simmy. Oh, weird. That's like a really low sort of like.
Just have a little programmer.
Whoa. So that's like nuts. You can randomize the entire synth, and I'll now talk about this, you can also randomize all of the individual bits of the synth at once. So if you just kind of like, I just don't know what to do today, you can just randomize something and then use that as a starting point and then build a better sound of your own.
They're remarkably musical.
Yeah. A lot of, I don't know if there's like parameters to this like randomization, right. Like it's not fun to necessarily randomize everything, so it's like way too loud or way too quiet. But I don't know. Yeah, maybe there is some kind of thought behind that. I've never actually asked the guys whether there is. So then let's just do like normal sound design. So if I go to initialize. And so we've got 3 oscillators, which is a familiar concept from analog synths. Those are your building blocks. But unlike on an analog synth, where we've got like 219 waveforms, got traditional ones. Clangorous sort of thing. So like that's clangor 1, which is very weird tone, and there's obviously this the cool little screen that kind of shows you what's happening. Yeah, it's very like nice little bit of feedback. And then if I want to make the sound longer and shorter, I want to mess with the envelopes. So the whole programming aesthetic here is that you've got this little module select. These are all buttons.
Can I just feel these?
You absolutely may push the button. You see
they feel good. Now this makes total sense.
Yeah.
I was a bit freaked out by the word mutant, but now this makes sense.
Okay, so we'll get to mutants, and it's nothing to be freaked out about.
No, do you know what I mean? I just thought, oh, what's that? And now I'm like, oh, this is really, and the flow of it.
Yeah, it's organised like, you would expect. Like, that's the architecture. Oscillator into mutants, into the mixer, into the filter. And so, yeah, if I go envelope, what happens is you push the button, and then these 8 little dials show you what those are. They change their function to become control something else. So
and represented there as well.
Yes.
Cool.
So if I up the release, so I can have like a nice 5-second release. Actually, I need to do this one. That's the amp. The other one was the filter envelope. So we've got envelopes, and there's actually 5. There's 5 envelopes, and there's 5 LFOs, and there's actually a 6th LFO, which is the one that's doing vibrato. It's got its own little menu setting. So you've got loads of modulation.
That's exciting, right, sound design-wise.
Yeah.
I can see you light up.
Well, yeah. Okay, and I'm excited because that means if I've got like 3 oscillators and I've got all these mutants, which we'll get to, I've got loads of blocks that I can use to push them around and make them do mad stuff like that first sound where you play it and it's just like all of this stuff happens, which is amazing. It's doing so much for free, basically. So you've got filters. Obviously, there is a dedicated knob here. And these are like, I was told this, and I don't know if I need to double check, but I was told that they're not analog modelled filters. They actually use like machine learning in the modelling of the filters. They're like machine learning modelled. That may be factually incorrect, but we'll need to confirm that. But yeah, I was like, that's amazing. There's some kind of crazy technology here.
Instead of a guy approximating a filter, they had
or doing a circuit model.
Yeah,
like they sort of, it's another way of arriving at the same thing, I guess. But it's wacky, and the filters sound nice. There is a drive as well. And there's different filter modes. So the
smooth?
There's the smooth filters.
Yeah, but that.
Oh, sorry, I thought you meant like.
I like your opinion. That was the smooth because I've heard some, and I'm starting to learn like that wasn't steppy at all.
No. Yeah, like the.
Even with the resonance.
I mean, there are. Yeah, I don't know if they smooth in between the steps. There's very fine resolution, obviously, with the. But anyway, so you've got different filters. There's like classic sort of ladder style, and there's a version they call fat, and what fat means is that it's resonance compensated, so that when you up the resonance, you lose. You don't on the fat model. And then there's low pass gate, which is like what you would have in a bootler synth, and then MS-20 style filters, and then this kind of third one, which is a kind of, well, they said it's based on a boutique modular synth. I'm not sure which one, but so yeah. You've got very nice kind of analog style filters. And then, so let's talk about the mutant thing. So this is kind of the heart and how it really differs to anything else. The idea is that you have your oscillators, but you can add this layer of like modification. It's like effects, but not like echo and reverb. So for example, we've got linear FM. So linear FM is where you're doing FM synthesis, but it's not sort of atonal. It can be, but it's kind of more tuned and musical, like what you would know from the DX7. Okay, so Mutant 1 I've got as FM linear, and I'll turn up the cutoff so you can hear it. And then if I increase the depth, and then, so you've got like a, so this is like mad, like gets into the kind of insane, like almost...
But musical.
Yes, like...
It didn't go, you nailed it, it wasn't atonal.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, but it's not sort of like inharmonic, it's tuned, there's a tune component, it remains tuned across the keyboard. But then FM's just, there's so many kind of interesting tones, especially for like ambient music that I really like, which can then...
And you can just put a dob in of that on whatever you want, really. Yeah.
But we've got multiple oscillators, so let's blend in a second one. In the mixer, so I use the mixer there, on page 2 is panning as well, so I can pan the oscillators left and right. Yeah.
Wow.
It's like, that's why digital synths are amazing.
Yeah.
Like that sort of stuff.
That sounded amazing.
Yeah, it's like, and you can't do that. Well, a bit like analog synths can sound crazy, and there are like, you know, like we looked at hard sync in other videos, and like there's odd clangorous tones to be had, but there's nothing like a dyed-in-the-wool crazy digital synth for doing everything else, you know, all that other stuff that you could use in tracks.
It evolved naturally to me, though.
Yes.
Sometimes when I've done it and I experiment with Wavetable, it's like,
bang, bang, bang to something else.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I think and I hope to just show that by doing it, but Scout's Honor, the whole interface is very fluid, and like when you start getting into it and you stop talking and just mess around with sound design on this thing, because of this, it becomes very quick and fluid to do things and move around.
So how do you, I know you just said it, but just to reiterate, because it's a new word to me, mutant.
Mutant.
How are you seeing it as opposed to LFO?
So like a mutant is just like an effect. So in the same way that you would add like crazy amounts of distortion to something, you know, we were looking at the Moog subsequent 25, and it's like, you know, got distortion there. Like, in a way, a mutant is like a distortion layer, but it could be doing any number of different things. So let me talk about some of the other mutants, because there's, I mean, this is where it gets nuts. So, for example, you've got pulse width modulation. You know, that's where you're changing the width of something. Yeah. There's like 3 different types of pulse width modulation on here, and I'm not going to go through them all.
Nick
but
Batt just said it.
Nick is like, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's it. So this is ASM pulse width, where they kind of chop the sound up into sort of windows, and you can pulse width within certain windows to different amounts, which is like real Space Cadet territory. But what I'll do is I will kind of reset. In fact, I might just totally reset the sound in it. And then go Mutant 1 to pulse width ASM, set the dry wet, and then we need to go into custom edit and set these little warp points. So look on this little screen here and see what's happening. So we're kind of tearing the waveform apart at different points and making it this kind of new static waveform, which is made up of all these little like squid bits.
It looks how it sounds.
Yeah. Wow. And then you start to think about like, what, that sounds nice. If I just modulate that thing, so how do I modulate parts? And so there's a very complex like modulation engine possibility. I can send these LFOs and these envelopes to different components. So for example, if I use LFO5 as a case in point, and I'll send it to warp marker 6, the shortcut is you go LFO to mutant 1. And so I've just said to the machine, I want to send the LFO to something that's in that mutant section. And then by going into these little controls, I pick the thing I want it to be. So let's say it's warp 5. Now that LFO is controlling warp marker 5 for me. And if I come in here, let's do like LFO. The filter is, that should be. And then apply effects to it.
And that was from an initial patch.
Yeah. It's just like, that's what I mean. You just go on these little like journeys, like that to that to that to that, and it's like, whoa, now we've arrived at somewhere totally weird, unexpected. Yeah.
It's like, it seems like all the panel real estate of a normal synth, they've condensed down.
Yeah, into like 8 knobs.
And that.
Yeah. And there's some pages stuff, like that's why if you go into the page, like go down, this little thing is lighting up. Do you see there's a little lit down arrow, say look down here, and that's where you get sort of panning. But the most important things are always there, like mostly you're going to want to mess with like mixer level, and that's what you get.
I suppose they're making everyone else's synths for years. They can pick and choose the bits that worked, and they've put it all in.
Well, what's interesting is the people behind this synth are people like, for example, Glenn Darcy, who some people will know Glenn. Glenn is a synth designer. He's worked for Akai and for Arturia in the past as well. You know, he's had a hand in things like the Matrix Brute and some amazing designs. And Glenn he works for ASM. So Glenn, this is part, but Glenn and the team as well, not just Glenn alone. You know, a lot of his ideas are in this machine, but it's a team effort, and they're just trying to do something different.
So even though it's a debut synth from a company, it's got
ain't their first rodeo,
and you can see it
at all. No, yeah, totally.
At first, I was a bit taken aback by some a bit. Again, that experience, that confidence, like even little touches, like the difference on these. Pitch and modules. You
can also you can program the colour that those become per patch as well. That's just like, why wouldn't you?
Falcon loves it.
Yeah, mate. So I'm gonna maybe we should play with some of the patches.
How many monstrous presets? Is it?
There's quite a few. Like I've gone through my phone. I've got like a list of them. I mean, you know, what I like and what other people like will be different, but. You should play. Well, you've not played at all.
Well, we're going to have the
no
talkie video.
So this is VHS Dreams.
Ooh.
It's like the sad bit in Stranger Things or something. So yeah, let's mess around with the arpeggiator actually. I think this is Glenn sort of loves arpeggiators over sequencers. Obviously you can sequence this externally to like a crazy extent. But arpeggiator is what's built in. If I switch it on, so there are like multiple things on here. I just want to highlight Ratchet and Chance. Ratchet and Chance, I think, which was a PlayStation 2 game.
It was,
It's Ratchet and Clank. So Ratchet is like when you've got like a little trill, you know, where there's like one note has got like 4 notes buried into it. And I think this controls the amount of ratchets, and Chance is the chance of ratchets. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of mess around, and hopefully I can try and make it so you can hear that. Like there's loads of different modes on the arpeggiator. It's very like fun just to.
I like
jam
you
out
can
with.
see that he's dedicated a lot to it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like that's a lot of real estate, but it is good. I mean, it's nice to embrace that. That's obviously like the intent. So let's play with it.
Really cool.
It's good, isn't it? Yeah. That's really
Really
good.
cool. What was going on there? Were you morphing or driving?
No, I was just messing with the cutoff, but with the resonance, I don't know if it's the which modes it's got.
It's huge change in
Yeah.
tone.
I mean, the resonance can introduce loads of bass and sort of fatten out the sound in an interesting way. Although it's not on the like resonance compensated filter. I don't know.
So
it's just
great.
it's an interesting voice. And we were playing with the ratchet and getting like trills and stuff going on. It's a nice one to jam out to. Obviously, you can clock all that stuff to MIDI and USB, so you can jam along to like a drum machine. So, like, I'm trying to think what next. Maybe we should just play with some of the little sounds as well. Is one of the sounds that I flagged, which is an interesting one for aftertouch. And it's got like a really warm. Let me play B32, which is this is another kind of crazy like,
love chat. And
home.
yeah.
So if you push home, interestingly, every sound has got, we've got all the LFOs and the envelopes, but you've also got like these 8 kind of preset parameter dials called which are macros, basically. I'm trying to remember if that's actually the name that they're referred to. Macros, of course they are, yes. So you can set up for a sound up to 8 knobs, and when you turn that knob, like up to, I think it is, 8 different things can be turned at the same time.
On one macro.
Yeah.
Killer.
So imagine that it's like one kind of special knob
And
which you can turn, and it does 8 things.
Kind of, even as a guy who's never seen this before, you can see twist, staccato, wave stack, flanger, noise.
Yeah.
So I'm probably going to get stuff to that effect.
Yeah. So if I play the sound, so this is Roach Run GD Glenn Darcy, who is the co-designer. So this is one of his sounds. And then what I'll do is I'll play with the different macro knobs that Glenn. So Glenn has set these up, named them, and they're going to do interesting things for the patch. reverb. So it's like really nuts. There's all of the, like, Glenn's sounds seem to have lots of like animation built in. Actually, there's one thing I wanted to flag. Arpeggiator is on. So is in the LFOs, I mean, there are more mutants to talk about, which we haven't, but with the LFOs, you've got multiple modes, but one of the most interesting is step. So let me show you this. So if I go, and this also, I totally forgot to mention, this is actually kind of one of the main things of the whole machine. So let's talk about this as well. Yeah. We'll do the two things at once. So I said before there were like 219 waveforms. You know, all those things. So a wavetable synth, technically, like a wavetable is a table of waves where you've got a bunch of different waves and the synthesizer moves between them kind of sometimes smoothly, sometimes abruptly. And that was kind of how a lot of like classic wavetable synths worked. And there was a kind of preset, like the designer designed the wavetable so it's that sound into that sound, into that, and that's how you moved through. And they gave you loads of those to play with, but you could never change the order in which they went. That was what was predetermined. So in this, you make your own wavetables. So you've got 219 and you build your own little section on it, and it's really easy.
So they're almost like waves, and then now we're going to go and make a traditional wave table. That makes sense, cool.
Yeah, so it's called wave scan. Right. So you move from single mode that into wave scan, and then I go into wave list edit, and now I see I've got 8 slots to put my own wavetables in. So the first one is saw. So maybe we'll have Horizon 4. So what do we want our second one to be? So what you do is you push this little button, and now this lets you preview the second one. So first one, second one. Cool, let's do a third one. So let's keep going and just like shred through these. It's kind of a bonkers one. It's called Chris Meyer. I think that's Chris Meyer who does Learning Modular. So obviously put some of his own waveforms. Chris's special waveforms have found.
Shout out, Chris. Thank you,
mate. Thank you very much.
And if you're realising how informative Alex is, go check out Mylar Melodies on YouTube and everything social.
Thanks, mate.
Do it.
Do the vids as well. So all right, let's do one more, and then we've got 5. Like this.
Squabble.
Squabble. So this is our selection. Cool. Interestingly, remember I mentioned the random button? You can also go random, 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 and just be like random, random, random.
Killer.
So let's have 8. And so you can do that whole thing and just randomize all of them. It's super cool. So I'll back out, and now we've got a wavetable. So that was our H. All right, so now we want to modulate the wave table. And do you remember what I said before? You go LFO, then thing. And now I'm saying I want you, the LFO, to control something in this block. And then I'll change that to wave scan. And so I'm controlling the amount of which I'm sending that LFO, which really matters, because if you send it a little bit, it'll move a little bit into the wavetable. If you send it a lot of it, then it will move right to the end and come...
Yeah, all of those.
So it really makes a difference. The shape as well, so like I come to LFO and choose different shapes. But the one I was going to mention before, which is the most interesting to me, is step. So steps where you design your own waveform step by step, which is really good if you're animating a wave scan, because you go to this wave, then that one, then this one, then that one. You come to down here to step edit, and then watch this. So I've created my own little thing, and again I could just go random, 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 random.
That's
if I wish.
cool.
So we can do that too. And then I can speed it up. And then it becomes really important, this trigger sync thing. That's where it's going to reset. It's going to be, does it have a completely different LFO rate per key? As in, if you play at the key, are they all going to play off against each other, or are they all going to lock in tempo? So if I go...
Yeah.
That's locked in. So that all of them are moving at the same time. And if you do poly, it's like, but it's different. Like then you get a weird kind of animation as they all like shift apart from each other. And then we can also do smoothing, so we can smooth. I don't know if it shows you. Yeah, look, it does. Of course, it shows you on the screen. So it's smoothing now. And then let's add loads of release, because that makes everything better. And then loads of attack.
Beautiful, man.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
I really
That
like
was
it.
so nice to listen to.
Mate, thank you. It's, yeah. If it isn't immediately apparent, this is quite a cool synth. Like, I don't know that I'm here to sort of demo synths and say
no,
they're
but
cool, but
that's
like,
really beautiful.
Like, this legit is one of the most interesting synth designs I think that's come out in years. And as we were talking before in the shop about, I think it's an amazing time for synths because there's lots of other really cool digital synths too, you know, and it's all about just having options and really interesting voices in your studio, you know.
What are the and just to touch on just a couple of things I spotted, so we can connect out.
So yeah, we should like mention this. Connectivity-wise, you've got obviously you can kind of it's a nice touch. They've done it in black, so at the top if you maybe can't see on the camera, but you can just make out that they've labelled the
MIDI
back out.
in, MIDI out, MIDI through, expression system. Yeah, it's all on there.
So MIDI, but they've done it in a way that doesn't detract from the front panel aesthetic. CV and gate outputs and inputs, so that you can use all these LFOs.
I bet people are
and send them
out about that.
Yeah, you can send them out to things. So you could use this as a
So if you were a
master
modular
keyboard
guy and you were looking at buying a few LFOs or modular, you might be able to justify.
Yeah, well, like, literally, you've got 5 of them, and so you could turn like Mod 1 and 2. You can send these LFOs out, or that step designer thing I was talking about. You
and
could
the
have
aftertouch is all assignable to that stuff.
Yeah.
And this big old ribbon.
There's a ribbon. as well.
Come on.
So basically with the ribbon, this is allowing us to have a kind of modulation option, or like you can even play along. So let's find a sound and we can sort of accompany ourselves.
Let's do it, let's find it. Okay, I didn't see it at first, but we got a big old ribbon controller.
We do.
If
Yes.
you didn't see it, it's there.
It's not immediately obvious, but there's a big old ribbon controller. That is the entire width of the keyboard right there. Just like another famous big keyboard with polyphonic aftertouch. I don't know what he's talking about.
A lot more expensive though.
Well, yeah, and very analog in its own way.
Yeah.
But like, so this is, there is a ribbon.
And what does a big ribbon give you?
So a big ribbon gives you more things, and those can take the form of modulation. So I can use it to like play a sound and kind of do something that I would traditionally do with a dial, and it could be lots of things that it's controlling. Or you can even do a thing of like playing along like a theremin, and you can have it so it's freely playable, or it's like pitch quantized. Perfect. And you can also like play along and like accompany yourself on the theremin. You have to be like quite...
That's what's good with the big ribbon, is it? Yeah, you can. There's enough space to do it.
Yeah, you can do it. So like, let's just play around with this very briefly, and it's a sound that this is like a modulation aspect. So. It's quite nice because you have to. Well, it becomes easy to like go back to specific points as well. Like, you know, when if you were squidging a dial,
because of that size,
sometimes like, it's coming back to that exact spot. But yeah, you've got a lot more real estate to like express yourself.
I'm hearing a lot of posh effects. How does it manage effects?
Okay, so and that is something that we should talk about, because that's a huge component of a lot of these sounds, and it's really good. So. That's just no effects. You've got like an insane amount of effects. There's a pre-effects block where we can have like choruses, flanges, phasers, tremolos. You've got a delay section which is stereo and has got lots of different modes, including reverse. You've got a reverb section which has got lots of interesting modes, including cloud. I'm not sure.
Like clouds,
absolutely, the cloud reverb, which we know and love. But it's got like hall and algorithms are really tastefully designed. I'll play them in a sec. I just want to mention that. I think they sound really good.
They sounded great.
And then there's a post effects where it's like more kind of chorus, flanger, rotary, and then there's like lo-fi, like bit crushing, and like compression and EQ. So there's like finisher effects.
Yes.
So you should be able to get a very, very polished sound, I suppose is the point. But like, let's just get a really basic sound, and I'll apply effects and just kind of let you hear the...
Cool, sweet.
Maybe we'll get slightly more. And then with a bit of this. One very quick pro tip is that if you want to copy the settings of one envelope for another, you hold save and go like that. And now... So that happened so quickly that you might have missed it, but I held save, but I didn't save the patch. I just go, I push the envelope
So
I want to copy it
at
from.
the same time?
Yeah, so you hold save, I go, I want to copy envelope 2 settings, and it's winking, saying, hey, where do you want to send those?
Yeah.
Envelope 1. So now I can quickly port over the settings.
Perfect.
So I don't have to set it up all again. So let's play with the effect. Chorus. So different types of chorus, basically. Chorus, I'll turn it off.
Really fat.
Mate. rotary. So like simulating rotary speaker
What I
system.
love is they're so posh that they sound like you've almost programmed it into the sound.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've got enough that you
like it's
have.
part
Like,
of
you get
the
all
core patch.
You kind of get the same level of control from like a dedicated hardware rack. And like with phases, on all these, they go to such extreme settings.
Can I just hear the lo-fi for the last one? So, just
so lo-fi is like...
the Falcon, I know that's it.
I mean, in all of these, there are like multiple modes as well.
Wow.
It's like, so there's way too much to explore in just like one bit. But yeah, that like bit crush kind of fizzy, like kind of
Kitchen sink. So it just comes in these two form factors.
Yes.
This is a. Like I said, we're gonna have the playing video, but I had a little feel on it. Feels good. When is it coming out?
It is out very soon. I mean, it depends when this video comes out. We are now in the year of our Lord 2020.
Yeah.
It will be February when they're coming. They are literally shipping now, so they are on a ship.
Okay.
So they're coming to the United Kingdom.
People can order them already.
You absolutely can.
A lot of people have ordered them.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean,
lot of excitement about
there
this.
is thank you to people. They have been like amazingly keen on this, like right from the get-go. It kind of came from nowhere. There was no warning, and then suddenly lots of
It's
YouTubers,
legit, man.
our people are making videos
real.
about it. Yeah, it is a thing. So I'll play around with the delay and reverb, and that maybe would be enough.
Yeah, and
for
if you
now.
like what we're doing, consider subscribing. Check out the other videos we've got on this and other videos that we've got to do with NAMM. If you don't like it, let us know in the comments. We'll try and learn from it.
Mate,
but if you could
what's
play
not to like about what you're doing?
We're trying, man. We're
Mate,
trying, brother. Thank you, mate.
enthusiasm.
It helps a lot.
Thank you, bro.
Wicked. See ya.